scientific study of Vedas, creation of universe, starting from Brahma. Class 44. Different types of Rudras and periodic table. We know Rudras are atoms and a number of atoms are first formed in this universe. Through these atoms, different types of atoms or Rudras, the universe was created at that time. As per Veda, Rudras are in sets. Let us go through one Yajurveda Sukta 25 in chapter 16 and see what it says.
Yajurvedam Adhyayam 16 Mantram 25 Rishi Kutsaha Devada Rudraha Chandaha Puri Shakuri Swaraha Thaivadaha Namo Ganepyo Ganapadipischa Vo Namo Namo Pradepyo Pradapadipischa Vo Namo Namo Gritsapyo Gritsapadipyascha Vo Namo Namo Virubepyo Vishwarubepyascha Vo Namaha.
It says Rudras are in sets. Sets means it is a group of similar things arranged in a group. And there are different sets. That means these atoms or Rudra can be classified into several groups based on their properties. Properties means these Rudras or atoms have a tendency to combine with other atoms. For what? For getting 8 electrons in the outermost orbit as per octet rule. Most of the atoms contain less than 8 electrons in the outermost orbit. So atom cannot remain as such. So they have a tendency to combine with others. It cannot remain as such. So the combining capacity also are properties are also different. Some atoms can only give out its electron. If there is a less electron in the outermost orbit, to get it is not possible. So it has a tendency to give out its electron. On the other hand, if the number of electrons in the outermost orbit is great, almost equal to 8, for example 7, 6, etc., then that requires 1 or 2 electrons. That is possible easily. So it has a tendency to take, not to give electron. So based on this, the property, chemical property of these atoms are depending on the number of electrons in the outermost orbit. That means either it has a tendency to give out electron or to take electron. Based on this, there are 2 types of properties, chemical properties, that is oxidation and reduction, etc. So the combining capacity or capacity to react with other atoms depends on the number of electrons in the outermost orbit. Based on this, all the atoms can be classified into several groups or sets. Groups are called sets. So Rudras form sets, and Rudra is the lord of that set. Rudra is the driving force in the nucleus. So that is what this sutta says. Now, let us go through a Purana, that is Kurma Purana and a Linga Purana. In Kurma Purana and Linga Purana, it says that there are 8 types of or 8 sets of Rudras. Rudras can be classified as 8 groups or 8 sets, and its negative also is there. So Rudra is nucleus and its negative is electron in the outermost orbit. So based on the property of atom depends on the number of protons in the nucleus or number of electrons in the outermost orbit. And mostly electrons are taking place in the chemical reaction. The chemical property depends on the number of electrons negative on the outermost orbit. So based on this, we can say that this electron can be treated as the female part of that Rudra. And as such, there are 8 female parts. They are, in the Purana stories, it may be character. So here it is named like that. For example, the 8 negative of Rudra or wife of Rudra or electron are mentioned as, the names are as follows: Lalita, Vijaya, Bhadra, Bhavani, Kumuda, Shiva, Vasudevi, Gauri, etc. Then how this classification is done? So we know it is now it is classified, Rudras are classified as 8 sets, 8 ganas. How? Because the number of electrons in the outermost orbit maximum is 8. If there is one electron, it has a very strong tendency to give out that electron. So as far as that atom is concerned, such atoms are concerned, they are very effective to react with other things and so as to give out that electron. If there is 2 electrons in the outermost orbit, that tendency is less when compared to 1 in the outermost orbit. So atom with 2 electrons in the outermost orbit also possess a tendency to give out that electron, but when compared to this electron with the 1 electron, that strength of that chemical strength of that atom is less. So if there is 3 electrons, it is not easy to give 3 electrons to another. If there is 4, this tendency decreases, this chemical property to give out electron decreases, and if there is 7 electrons in the outermost orbit, it requires 1. So it will not give out, it has a tendency to take electron. Likewise, the property of all the atoms can be classified as based on the number of electrons that is in the outermost orbit. So the maximum number is 1 to 8. So it can be classified as 8 sets, 8 ganas, or 8 types of Rudras. That is why Kurma Purana, Linga Purana says there are 8 types of, 8 sets of atoms. Based on modern science also, electrons are arranged in a periodic table, and in that periodic table there are 8 groups, vertical columns, 8 groups. In the first group comes up an atom with 1 electron in the outermost orbit, and the second group contains 2 electrons in the outermost orbit. In the third group, 3 electrons. Likewise, there are 8 groups. Here, 8 sets of Rudras are there. Both are saying the same thing. But in Matsya Purana, we are saying the story in the last class. It says that Rudra created these atoms, and as such it created 11 types of Rudras. So there are 11 types. We have seen 8 types because based on the number of electrons in the outermost orbit. Then here it says 11. So we know there are 8 electrons in the outermost, maximum electrons that is possible in the outermost orbit is 8. So depending on that, the number of electrons in the outermost orbit, its chemical properties depending on that number of electrons on the outermost orbit. So 8 types are there. 8 types of Rudras are there. But in that case also, in most of the cases, there are 8 electrons in the outermost orbit, or the maximum possible is 8, and 8 is to be there. But in the case of hydrogen and helium, that is the first 2 atoms, the orbit is very small, so it is not possible to accommodate 8 electrons. So that octet rule is not applicable as such in the case of hydrogen and helium. In the case of hydrogen and helium, 8 is not required, only 2 is required, 1 or 2. So hydrogen and helium behaves in a different way when compared with all the other atoms, because in that case 8 electron is required in the outermost orbit, but in this case, in the case of hydrogen and helium, only 2 are required. So these atoms possess a different quality, the property, so they can be separated. Then there are 8 plus these 2. These 2 can be avoided from this group and treated as separately. So because it contains only first shell, it possesses only first shell, this small in size, and it can occupy only 2 electrons. So there may be 8 plus 2, 10 types of Rudras. In certain cases it is represented as 10. Then there is Rudra is the nucleus. Actually Rudra is the nucleus and electron is the negative part. Rudra is acting at the nucleus. So in the case of hydrogen, there is 1 electron. It has a tendency to give out its electron. So if it gives out its electron, then hydrogen ion, it becomes an ion it also is Rudra without any electron in its orbit. So in hydrogen ion, it also is like an atom, but in that case there is an electron, no electron also. But in the case of hydrogen atom, there is one electron. If it gives its electron to some other atom, then it will become an ion. That also is Rudra because nucleus is there. That negative part is not there. So that can be also be treated as a separate type of Rudra. That is true Rudra. Rudra is nucleus. But in Ardhanarishwara, electron also is required. That is why both electron nucleus and the electron in combination is taken as Rudra. But the starting point of Rudra is that nucleus. So it can be treated separately. In that case, 8 plus 2 plus 1, 11. So 11 Rudras are there. In short, electrons with 8 atoms with the 8 electron, that is possible in the outermost orbit is 18 numbers. That is atom with 1 electron, 2 electron, 3 electron, etc. 8 electron in the outermost orbit. That is 8. Then hydrogen and helium. In that case, only 2 electrons are possible in the outermost orbit. In hydrogen, 1 is there. In helium, 2 is there. So that 2 can be combined, treated as separately. So 8 plus 2, 10. And in the case of hydrogen atom, if this electron is removed, then there is a Rudra there without electron. That also can be treated as separately. So total 11 types of Rudras are possible. Again, in Linka Purana it says Rudra gives 100 Rudras in any yaga. Yaga means in the creation of your any activity, in any chemical reaction, or in the creation of universe. Wherever such chemical actions are taking place, that place is called Yaga Sthal. Yaga place. There, Rudra sends 100 Rudras. So, total number of atoms are, generally speaking, it is 100. Even though at present 118 are possible, but all the other things are easily, very little life. It will easily decompose into other things. But as per Veda, there are 180 is the maximum number. That is why the total number of atom can be taken as 108 because that 108 possesses a particular type of electronic configuration which is the maximum stable point that can be attained. As per the electronic configuration, that 108 atom possesses a particular type of electronic configuration that possess the other stable atoms. That we can see later when we go deep into the electronic configuration of atom. So the maximum number of atom that Rudra created is stable one, which can be attained stability, is 108. However, their life also is less. Generally speaking, it is 100. So, generally speaking, 100 atoms are there. And these 100 atoms are grouped into, in the periodic table, as in 8 groups. That is 8 sets of Rudras as per Veda. As per Veda, 8 sets of Rudras are there, and as per modern science, there are 8 groups in the periodic table. And as per Veda, hydrogen and helium can be treated separately. It possesses a different type of property from others. In the case of hydrogen, only one electron is required, and it has a tendency to give, it can give out one electron or it can take one electron. The chance is 50-50. And it is very powerful also when compared with other atoms. So hydrogen can be treated separately, and helium also can be treated separately. So 8 plus 2, 10 also possible. 10 types of sets of Rudras are possible. And if you remove the electron from this hydrogen atom, it becomes hydrogen ion. That is an important ion in the reaction that takes place based on chemical laws. In chemistry, hydrogen ion is an important thing. We take part in most of the actions. In the cloud itself, there is hydrogen ion. So this hydrogen ion itself is a Rudra. So it can be treated as separately. So there are 11 types of Rudras. So total is 100, and theoretically it may be 108. And these 100 or 108 are subgrouped into 8 in the periodic table. 8 groups. They are arranged in 8 groups in the modern periodic table. That is 8 type of Rudras or 8 sets of Rudras. And again, it can be considered as Rudra. This Rudra sets can be considered as 10 or 11. So all these things are saying in Vedas and in modern science. These things are saying in the same way. There is no difference. Same things are presenting in different ways. That's all. In Vedas, the wives of or the names of these atoms, 108 atoms, are given as the different names of Durga. Durga is also related with the Rudra or Shiva. So if there is 108 Rudras, there are 108 Durgas, and the names are given separately. That is the name of the atom also. In modern science, atoms are named as hydrogen, helium, etc. In Vedas, it is named as Sati, Satvi, Bhavapriti, Bhavani, etc. There are 108 names. Now let us go to another subject related with the same atom or Rudra in the next class.